You are listening to Japan Experts, the podcast that helps you plan, book, and enjoy an effortless and immersive journey to Japan. Excited to visit Japan but overwhelmed by endless options, confusing transport, or language barriers? I get it. I'm Miyuki Seguchi, licensed guide and your cultural bridge to Japan. I've helped countless travelers turn their Japan dreams into seamless and unforgettable adventures, and I'll help you do the same. In every episode, you'll discover local tips, expert knowledge, and first-hand insights to plan with peace, travel confidently, and create lifelong memories in Japan. Ready to do this, Cassie? Let's dive in. Today, I'm super excited to deliver a very special interview. But first, here's a bit of the background for you. One of the things I feel so grateful for in running my business is that I can connect with so many incredible people around the world, create memorable experiences together with their family, and build good friendships. Lorie Clements is one of such friends and amazing clients I had the great pleasure of working with. Lorie and I first connected a few months before her trip to Japan. She later joined my one-on-one program, and together we crafted a personalized itinerary for her family. I also had the pleasure of spending a day with them on a private tour. In this episode, I interviewed Lorie about the actual travel experiences she had enjoyed and how she had planned her trip. We also discussed the types of experiences she's hoping to have on her next adventure to Japan. I must say, it's been a real pleasure to hear about all the experiences she had achieved in Japan as I've been with her through her entire travel planning journey. My program has evolved since we worked together, but the heart of how I support my clients remains the same. You'll hear plenty of thoughtful insights and practical travel guidance throughout this conversation. So without further ado, let me welcome Lorie. You first flew to Osaka and then visited Kyoto, Nagoya, and Tokyo. What was your impression of these cities and what was your most memorable experience?
Oh, wow. What a great question. So, what was my impression of these cities and my most memorable experience? I mean, I have to say, first of all, Osaka, that was our first destination. That was our first experience with just how polite and lovely the Japanese people are. We were, just shocked. Everyone is, so thoughtful and, like quiet in the subways, and everything was so clean. So Osaka was just a lovely first experience for us. And we loved the food. We did a really fun guided tour in the first afternoon of our arrival, and that was just a blast. So much great food in Osaka. Moving on to Kyoto, we were a little bit less jet lagged there, so we were able to really get into it. And in Kyoto, we loved the Heian Shrine. Am I saying it right? You'll correct me if I'm not, I hope.
Heian
It was
Shrine, yes.
just beautiful walking around the lake and how lovely the shrine was maintained. It was just a really, really unique experience. We were actually there over the Christmas holidays, and so we had some wonderful meals and checked out some great, wonderful sites around Kyoto, like the Golden Pavilion. When we were in Kyoto, one of our favorite things was a sushi making class, and that was wonderful. It was in someone like a sushi chef's house, right? So you got to both see how a traditional Japanese house is set up, and then watch this woman cook and then do it yourself. And I have a family of 5. I have 3 daughters, and from 7 to 16, and they all made sushi. They loved it. So that was a really fun experience. From there, we went on to Nagoya, and Nagoya, it was very unique to see like a smaller town, and it seems like a very culturally rich town. So we did a guided tour with you, lucky us, because that was such a highlight. And the guided tour of the Nagoya Castle, just wonderful to learn about the history and see firsthand. And then probably the highlight of our entire trip came when you took us to the workshop of a local artisan who practices the Yuzen kimono painting technique. And he showed us in his beautiful workshop how we could use the same technique, and we were able to paint on a handkerchief and take that home. And he showed us all his kimonos. That was just a blast. We loved it. I would recommend that to anyone. And just such a gracious man, and so, helpful and encouraging. So my kids just loved it. And, from there, we headed off to Tokyo. And in Tokyo, wonderful experience. We stayed at different types of accommodations. You helped us find a place that was a traditional Japanese merchant house. That was really fun. In Osaka, we stayed at a hotel that did a lot of cool tours and had like a little mini ryokan type experience. That was great. And then in Tokyo, we stayed at like a big hotel just to have the big Tokyo experience, right? And we did the Sumida Hokusai Museum, the artist that painted the Great Way. That was nice. Explored a lot of the traditional districts. We loved the fish district. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. So wild. So many people everywhere, so many unique offerings, just such a great cultural experience. And then we did the Harry Potter studio tour because I have kids, so they loved that. And, Shibuya Crossing, Meiji Shrine, we covered a lot of ground in our, what was it, 10 or so days, and really just loved it. Couldn't have covered as much ground had I had to plan this on my own. So thank you again, Yuki. That was awesome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to hear about all these experiences. It was like very much like I was with you whole time and just by simply hearing your stories. So thank you for sharing that. So
Well,
I tried to also talk a little bit about your travel planning journey. First of all, like you had other options, right? Like working with a travel agent or doing it on your own. Like, why did you choose to join the Uniquely Japan experience?
Sure. Well, at first I thought, I'm going to plan this myself. I really want to do a bunch of research. I have stacks of books in my office, stacks. And, with my own business and 3 kids and a busy schedule, yeah, that didn't happen. So as I was getting closer, I was getting anxious, and I was trying to listen to podcasts while working out and running about my day to see, what can I learn from podcasts? Will that help? And your podcast stood out as one where, you just had a really helpful spirit about you. And so I reached out and decided I did not need to do this all on my own. I was going to work with you to help me plan it. And I'm really so grateful because, booking some things on Japanese websites and whatnot, no criticism at all, but sometimes a little hard when you're translating it into English. I was experiencing some hiccups and, just like needed someone to ask, like, what is this luggage shipping thing? Do I really ship my luggage? And I was able to ask you so many detailed questions. And in my experience, a lot more detailed questions than one would usually ask a travel agent, because you were really intimately involved in what would my family like and what would the girls like, what would my husband like to do. So you made my planning experience a lot more stress-free. I would say I've traveled extensively throughout the world. I love travel. It's my stress relief. And I will say that when I was trying to plan this trip on my own, it was one of, if not the most difficult places to plan a trip to. So super grateful that I could come, and I'd started to plan some things, and you had to redirect me kindly, because little did I know I was going to end up spending half my trip on a train, right? With train schedules and just logistics and such. So you saved me from myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If you don't mind, could you walk us through the process of how we planned and prepared for your trip?
Sure. So I think first you started with some really good questions, had me fill out like, what are some of my travel objectives and what things have I already booked? What ideas did I have so that you could, be respectful and slot in some of the things that we already had planned or had our hearts set on. And then he organized everything for us, in a really helpful Google sheet. And from there, it was just kind of back and forth, lots of questions like, do I have enough planned on this date? What's something else we could do here? And just lots of questions. And it was great. I would send you a question with emails or an email full of questions, and you would respond in one color. And I would respond with follow up questions in another color. And I think on one or two questions, we had like 10 different colors by the end of it, back and forth. Miyuki, this website still isn't working. What else can I try? And you'd come back and you'd help me figure it all out. So it was a really good experience. And then there were kind of checkpoint calls throughout the process. And the last call to make sure that, we felt 100% ready was, just really reassuring when you're traveling somewhere where you don't speak the language and, not everywhere is going to speak English. And you just want to make sure that you've thought of all of the things that are in your control so that you and your family can have the best experience. So it was
Wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful. Yes, great summary. Thank you for sharing that. So you've already talked about your tour experience at the beginning of this interview, but you've joined the private tours in Nagoya with me and also another tour in Tokyo. Could you share a little bit more about your experiences? And you've mentioned the Yuzen, the kimono painting experience was a highlight of your trip. Could you elaborate a little bit more about your tour experience, if you don't mind?
Sure. And actually, we even had a private tour in Osaka because the hotel tour ended up being just us. So I felt really lucky that we had tours in, three of the four cities that we visited. And what I really loved about each of those tours is just having someone one on one that you can ask all the questions of. Like, what does that billboard mean? Right. And I notice people are doing this when they eat. Is that how I should be eating too? Right. And like all of the questions that you would just be kind of like embarrassed to ask in a big group, or you wouldn't interrupt someone to ask them these basic questions or cultural type questions. So nice to have a private tour guide. And where like my kids wanted to stay longer at one venue than another, you're able to just pivot and have some direction on how the day goes. And like how you were really thoughtful about what type of restaurant do we want to eat at between activities, and getting that all sorted in advance so we're not trying to run from one place to the next and not knowing where to eat. And heaven forbid you eat in public in Japan, right? So like got to get that sorted. But it was just lovely, so flexible and able to be customized and nimble. And you had recommended our tour guide in Tokyo. She was lovely, she was so great. Even stayed with us a little bit later, even though there was a holiday starting, because my kids wanted to, hang out a little bit longer, checking out the stalls with fun things to buy. And so that type of customization and consideration, you just can't get that in like a big group tour. And you wouldn't get all the answers and the explanation if you're trying to do it on your own. Like, when I had 1,000 questions for you about the Nagoya Castle, right? Like, how many wives did they have? How did this work? How did that work? And that wasn't in the tour guide pamphlet. I would have left with more questions, and you were able to answer so many of those questions. So that's what I loved about.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just a curiosity, like, do you usually book private tours when you visit other places in the world?
It depends. For places as culturally rich as Japan, yes. For places I've been before, maybe not as often, but like I love doing bicycling tours through cities. You can see a lot and you get a little bit of explanation. Or if it's a museum that I'm really excited about, like the Louvre, like do the Louvre highlights tour, in Paris, that sort of thing. So I appreciate the value of a private tour, especially when you have limited time. but it kind of depends on the venue, on the location, and I think Japan is the type of place where you definitely want a private tour.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. I'm wondering, like, after your amazing experience in Japan, like, what's your thought on Japan, and would you like to visit Japan again? If
Oh my
so, like,
gosh.
yeah, if so, what kind of experiences would you
Ah,
like to try?
I would absolutely love to visit Japan again. I tell everyone who will listen they should go. And if I would visit again, I would say, we didn't have a lot of time to get out into the countryside in some of the smaller towns. I would like to do that. I would have liked to go to a ryokan, a traditional spa, and do the full experience. A little bit hard with younger kids, but maybe if my husband and I were going back, we would do that together. Maybe skiing in Japan would be nice. I would love to do some hiking. The landscapes were just gorgeous, and I didn't feel like it does it justice to, whip by on a speed train and try to make out the beautiful scenery, from a train window. So more time in the countryside, definitely. And maybe getting out to Okinawa. I was sad we didn't have time to do that. And maybe, for fun, I'd love to try to do a little bit better with the language. Maybe even do like a couple days in an intensive language program at the start of the trip, just to enrich the experience. That would be nice. So I have all kinds of plans. That's like 4 vacations. I'm gonna keep you busy, Miyuki.
You mentioned Okinawa because you like to enjoy beaches, like seaside of
Yeah,
Japan. Um,
yeah. It's seaside.
like a lot of people mention Okinawa, but actually, if you love beach sides, like Okinawa is not the only place. There are a lot of places that I could suggest, and there are like so many beautiful
Oh,
beaches also. So I love to, yeah, talk about that like maybe soon. And also like one more thing, like language, the intensive language, the sessions that you
mhm.
mentioned, is that because you thought learning a Japanese language is something that travelers should do before they visit Japan, or would that be like maybe like knowing a little bit of like Japanese, like basic Japanese words and phrases would help experience in Japan, do you think?
I think knowing a little bit of Japanese is just doing yourself a favor, right? I mean, forgive me, I don't find it the easiest of languages. I speak French and Spanish, and it's just like not related at all, right? So I tried to learn a little bit beforehand. I wish I'd learned a little bit more. Also, I feel like when you try to learn the language of the native language of the country you're visiting, it's kind of a show of respect and appreciation that you don't just show up and expect everybody to speak English. And I feel like when you make the slightest bit of effort to try to speak their language, they're grateful. And I mean, everyone in Japan was gracious and was happy to help. But I think even more so too, like you can have a more of a conversation with the locals, and I just feel like that's appreciated, and you're going to get more out of the experience when you do. But I know it's not possible for everyone. And not everybody likes languages, but if you can learn just a little bit, I think it helps you out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I love your approach. And that's a great tip. And like today's interview has like it was full of great tips and wonderful insights. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your support.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I really appreciate how special you made our family's trip to Japan.
Let's craft your dream Japan trip together. Head over to Instagram at japan.experts and DM me Japan. I'll personally share expert insights and recommendations to help you plan with ease and feel confident about your trip, so you can make unforgettable lifelong memories in Japan. Not on Instagram, no worries. Join the Japan Experts community on Facebook, where I share exclusive travel tips and answer your questions. Or grab one of my free Japan travel guides. All the links are in the show notes. I can't wait to connect with you soon.